The jump gate opened with a flash of blue light, and the USS Sparrow came through into the Varanthos system. Commander Daniel Harris stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the view screen. What he saw made his stomach tight, but his face stayed calm. There were hundreds of alien warships floating in the darkness of space. Some of them were so large that they blocked out the stars behind them. The Galactic Assembly had called all spacefaring species to this neutral system. It was supposed to be a show of peace, but everyone knew the truth. This was where the powerful species came to show off their military strength. This was where they decided who was predator and who was prey. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Monroe stood at her station and watched the sensor data scroll across her screen. She was the executive officer of the Sparrow, and she had served with Daniel for 6 years. She knew him well enough to see the tension in his shoulders even when his voice was steady. "Commander, I am counting 347 vessels from 37 different species," she reported. "The largest belongs to the Kethvari Empire. Their flagship is called the Dominion of Stars. It measures 48 kilometers from bow to stern." Daniel nodded slowly. He had read the intelligence reports about the Kethvari. They were a reptilian species that had conquered 11 worlds in the past 2 centuries. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. The weak existed to serve the strong, or to die. "And how does our ship compare?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. Lisa's voice was carefully neutral. "The Sparrow measures 412 meters, sir. We are approximately 116 times smaller than the Kethvari flagship." The bridge crew stayed silent. They all knew what this meant. When the alien species looked at their ship, they would see something small and weak. They would see prey. Lieutenant Kevin Parks sat at the tactical station. He was young but talented, and he had volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. His fingers moved across his console as he tracked the alien weapons systems. "Sir, I am detecting targeting sensors from at least 20 different vessels," he said. "They are scanning us." "Let them scan," Daniel replied. "They will not find what they are looking for." The secret of the Sparrow was buried deep within its hull. The ship had no visible weapons, no massive cannon arrays, no torpedo launchers. To any scanner, it looked like a lightly armed patrol vessel that had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. But hidden in the center of the ship was something that humanity had spent 70 years building in absolute secrecy. They called it the Convergence Lance. Chief Engineer Maria Santos was down in the engineering section running her daily checks on the device. She had helped design it when she was fresh out of the academy. Now she was 53 years old, and she had given her entire career to this one machine. The Lance was her life's work, and today it might change the course of human history. The communication system crackled, and a harsh, alien voice filled the bridge. The universal translator converted it to English, but could not hide the contempt in the speaker's tone. "Attention, unknown vessel. This is the Dominion of Stars, flagship of the Kethvari Empire. Identify yourself, and explain why you have brought such a pathetic craft to the Galactic Assembly." "R." Daniel straightened his uniform and nodded to Lisa. She opened the return channel. "Dominion of Stars, this is Commander Daniel Harris of the USS Sparrow representing the United Earth Government. We are here to participate in the assembly as invited." There was a pause. Then the alien voice returned, and this time it was laughing. The sound was harsh and cold like metal scraping against stone. "The humans have sent a shuttle to represent their species. How amusing. Tell me, little human, did you lose your real warship along the way? Perhaps it broke down and you had to come in your emergency craft." More laughter joined in. Daniel realized that the transmission was being broadcast to the entire fleet. Every alien species in the system was listening to the Kethvari mock humanity. Ambassador Patricia Cole contacted the bridge from her quarters on Deck 3. She was a veteran diplomat who had spent 20 years negotiating with alien species. Her voice was tense with concern. "Commander Harris, the situation is deteriorating. I am receiving messages from multiple delegations asking why Earth has insulted the Assembly with such a small vessel. The Mendari ambassador is suggesting that we should not be granted full membership. The Zorvathi are calling us a joke." Daniel kept his eyes on the view screen. The massive Kethvari flagship was moving closer. Its hull was covered with weapon emplacements that glowed with barely contained energy. A single volley from that ship could destroy a small moon. "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" he asked. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps we should explain that the Sparrow is just an advance scout. We could tell them that our main fleet is coming. Buy ourselves some time." "That would be a lie." "Yes, but it might save us." Daniel shook his head even though she could not see him. "We did not come here to lie. We came here to show the galaxy who humanity really is. If we start with deception, then nothing we build will have a solid foundation." Lisa looked up from her station. "Commander, the Keth Very High Admiral is requesting a direct communication. His name is Zor Kethan. According to our files, he has commanded their fleet for 300 years. He personally ordered the extinction of 2 species who refused to submit to Kethvari rule. Put him through." The view screen changed to show the face of a Kethvari. He had dark green scales and 4 yellow eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. His mouth was full of sharp teeth, and when he smiled, it was not a friendly expression. "So you are the leader of the human delegation," Zor Kethan said. "I expected someone more impressive. Tell me, little human, do your people have any concept of what true power looks like? Do you understand how insignificant you are in this galaxy?" Daniel met the alien's gaze without flinching. "High Admiral, humanity is new to the stars. We have much to learn. But we did not come here to be intimidated." Zor Kethan laughed again. "Intimidated? I am not trying to intimidate you. I am trying to educate you. The universe is a dangerous place. The weak do not survive. Looking at your tiny ship, I wonder how your species has survived at all." "We survive," Daniel said quietly, "because we do not give up, no matter the odds." The Kethvari leaned closer to his camera. "Pretty words. But words mean nothing without strength to back them up. I look forward to seeing what your little sparrow can do when the real tests begin." The transmission ended. Daniel stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew. "Everyone stay focused. This is exactly what we expected. They see us as weak, and that is what we want them to see. When the time comes, they will learn the truth." Kevin looked up from his console. "Sir, do you really think we can change their minds? They have been conquering species for centuries. Why would they respect us?" Daniel walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. The home of 8 billion people who were counting on this mission to secure their place in the galaxy. "They will respect us," he said, "because we will give them no other choice." Humanity did not crawl out of the caves and cross the ocean and reach for the stars just to bow down to the first bully we met. We are small, but we are not weak. And soon the whole galaxy will understand the difference. The Sparrow drifted forward into the gathering of giants. It looked tiny and fragile among the massive warships of the elder species, but inside its hull the Convergence Lance waited in silence. And Commander Daniel Harris knew that before this was over, the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 days passed, and the mockery did not stop. Every time the Sparrow moved through the fleet, the alien vessels would broadcast insults on open channels. The Kethvari were the worst, but they were not alone. The Zorvathi called humanity's ship a floating coffin. The Mendari said it looked like something their children would build as a school project. Even the peaceful Vothkai, beings made of living crystal who rarely spoke at all, transmitted a message asking if the humans needed assistance repairing their obviously damaged vessel. Commander Daniel Harris endured it all with patience. He attended the diplomatic functions with Ambassador Patricia Cole and smiled politely when alien delegates made jokes about his ship. He answered their questions about Earth with honesty and grace. He never raised his voice and he never showed anger, but inside his chest his heart burned with quiet determination. On the morning of the 4th day, the assembly gathered for what they called the demonstration of strength. This was the main event of the gathering. Each species would show off the capabilities of their warships. They would fire their weapons at target drones and perform combat maneuvers. It was supposed to be a peaceful display, but everyone knew the real purpose. This was where the strong reminded the weak of their place. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Monroe briefed the command staff in the conference room. She pulled up holographic displays showing the schedule of demonstrations. The HFY will go first, as is their tradition, she explained. They will demonstrate their plasma cannons and their shield technology. After that, the Zorvathi will show their gravity weapons, then the Mindari, then the Vothkai, and so on down the list. Where are we on the schedule? Daniel asked. Lisa hesitated. We are last, sir. The assembly placed us at the end because they consider us the least significant participant. Kevin Park made a sound of frustration. They are treating us like entertainment. Something to laugh at after the real demonstrations are over. Good, Daniel said. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Being last means everyone will be watching. They will all be relaxed and confident. They will be expecting a joke. What they get will be something very different. Ambassador Patricia Cole leaned forward. Commander, I need to know what you are planning. The diplomatic situation is delicate. If we embarrass ourselves further, we may lose any chance of being taken seriously by the assembly. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at each member of his crew. These were the people who had volunteered to fly into the unknown with him. They deserved to know the truth. The Convergence Lance is not just a weapon, he said slowly. It is a message. When we fire it, the galaxy will understand that size is not the same as strength. They will understand that humanity is not prey. What exactly does the lance do? Patricia asked. It removes things from existence, completely and instantly. No explosion. No debris. No warning. The target simply stops being real. The room was silent. Patricia's face had gone pale. How is that possible? She whispered. Our scientists discovered a way to tap into the quantum foam that underlies all of reality. The lance focuses that energy into a beam that unravels the fundamental forces holding matter together. Anything it hits is erased at the subatomic level. Kevin swallowed hard. Sir, a weapon like that could destroy anything. Yes, it could destroy a fighter craft or a dreadnought or a planet. The size of the target does not matter. That is why we built it into a small ship. We wanted to prove that the weapon itself is enough. We do not need massive vessels. We do not need armies of soldiers. We just need one ship and one shot. The demonstration began an hour later. The Sparrow took its position at the edge of the fleet and watched as the HFY showed their power. The Dominion of Stars fired its plasma cannons and melted a target drone into vapor. It raised its shields and absorbed hits from weapons that could crack a planet's crust. High Admiral Zorkethan broadcast commentary the entire time, boasting about HFY superiority. The Zorvathi were next. Their ships used gravity manipulation to crush targets into balls of compressed matter, no larger than a fist. The Mindari demonstrated their particle beams, which could slice through anything with surgical precision. The Vothkai sang a strange crystalline song that shattered targets through harmonic resonance. Species after species showed their strength. The displays grew more impressive and more deadly. And through it all, the alien vessels kept glancing at the tiny human ship, waiting for the joke that was sure to come. Finally, the moment arrived. The assembly announcer, a being made of pure energy from a species called the Luminari, broadcast to all vessels. The final demonstration will be provided by the humans of Earth aboard their vessel, the USS Sparrow. They will now show us what their species can do. Laughter rippled through the fleet. The HFY broadcast Mockery on open channels. Someone suggested that the humans should demonstrate how to run away. Daniel stood on his bridge and took a deep breath. Open a channel to the Dominion of Stars. Lisa complied. The view screen showed High Admiral Zorkethan, surrounded by his officers. They were all smiling with cruel amusement. Ah, the little human is ready to perform, Zorkethan said. Tell me, will you be showing us how to cook food or perhaps how to clean floors? Those seem like appropriate skills for a species as weak as yours. High Admiral, Daniel replied calmly. I challenge you to a direct combat demonstration. My ship against yours. One-on-one. The laughter stopped. Zorkethan stared at the screen with all four of his yellow eyes. You challenge me? Your tiny vessel against the Dominion of Stars? Yes. This is a joke. No, High Admiral. This is a challenge. unless you are afraid to accept. A murmur ran through the alien fleets. No one had ever challenged the Kethvari so directly. No one had ever been foolish enough to try. Zorkethan's scales darkened with anger. You dare question my courage? I have conquered worlds, human. I have exterminated species. I am not afraid of your pathetic little ship. Then, accept my challenge. The Kethvari commander bared his teeth in a savage grin. Very well, human. I accept. But when I destroy you, I will not stop there. I will take your challenge as an act of war. My fleet will travel to your homeworld, and I will personally watch as Earth burns. Daniel's voice did not waver. If you win, you can try. If I win... Zorkethan laughed. There is no if. There is only when. Prepare yourself, little sparrow. In 10 minutes, you will be nothing but atoms drifting in the void. The transmission ended. The bridge crew looked at their commander with a mixture of fear and trust. They had trained for this moment. They had believed in the mission. But now that it was here, the reality of what they were about to do pressed down on them like a physical weight. Battle stations, Daniel ordered. All hands prepare for combat. Engineering. Bring the Convergence Lance to full readiness. Down in the heart of the ship, Chief Engineer Maria Santos heard the order and began the activation sequence. The lance hummed with power that seemed to vibrate in her bones. 70 years of human ingenuity was about to prove its worth. Lance is powering up, she reported. 60 seconds to full readiness. Daniel watched the massive Kethvari flagship turn toward them. Its weapons were glowing, its shields were rising. 48 kilometers of war machine was preparing to swat a tiny human ship like an insect. But Daniel Harris was not afraid. He knew something that Zorkethan did not. He knew that the universe had rules that even the strongest could not break, and one of those rules was simple. It only takes one shot to change everything. The Dominion of Stars moved through space like a metal mountain. Its engines burned with the fire of captured suns. Its hull was covered in scars from 100 battles, each one a victory that had added to the Kethvari legend. For 3 centuries, this ship had been the symbol of an empire built on conquest and fear. Commander Daniel Harris watched it approach on his view screen. The ship was so large that it filled his entire field of vision. He could see individual weapon batteries the size of city blocks. He could see fighter bays that could hold thousands of attack craft. He could see the bridge tower rising from the center of the vessel like a throne of steel and fire. Distance to target, 12,000 kilometers in closing, Lieutenant Kevin Park reported. His voice was steady, but his hands were gripping his console so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Hold position, Daniel ordered. Let them come to us. The alien fleets had pulled back to observe the confrontation. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of species formed a massive ring around the two combatants. They were all recording. They were all waiting to see the tiny human ship destroyed. Down in engineering, Chief Engineer Maria Santos made the final adjustments to the Convergence Lance. The device was fully powered now. She could feel its energy pulsing through the walls of the ship like a heartbeat. After all these years, it was finally ready to show what it could do. Commander, the Lance is at 100%, she reported through the intercom. Targeting systems are synchronized. We can fire on your command. Understood. Stand by. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Monroe pulled up the tactical display. The Dominion of Stars was powering its weapons. She could see energy building in its plasma cannons. She could see its targeting sensors locking onto the Sparrow. Sir, they are preparing to fire. Based on their weapon signatures, I estimate they will be ready in approximately 90 seconds. Daniel nodded. He had 90 seconds to make one final attempt at peace. Open a channel to the Kethvari flagship. High Admiral Zorkethan appeared on screen. His 4 yellow eyes were bright with anticipation. Behind him, his officers were preparing for battle with the casual confidence of warriors who had never known defeat. Have you come to surrender, little human? Zorkethan asked. I would accept your submission. Your species would make useful slaves. I have come to offer you a choice, Daniel replied. Withdraw your challenge. Take your fleet and leave this system. Go back to your empire and leave humanity in peace. If you do this, Then no one needs to die today. Zorkeithan laughed. It was the same harsh sound, like metal scraping against stone. You offer me a choice? You threaten me? Look at yourself. Human. You are nothing. Your ship is nothing. Your entire species is nothing but food waiting to be consumed. I am offering you mercy, High Admiral. This is the only time I will offer it. The laughter stopped. Zorkeithan leaned forward, and his eyes narrowed to slits. Mercy. You think I need mercy from you? I am Zorkeithan of the Kethvari. I have burned worlds. I have wiped out civilizations. I have been waging war since before your species learned to make fire. And you dare to offer me mercy? Yes. Then you are a fool. And fools deserve what they get. The transmission ended. Daniel stood in silence for a moment. He had tried. He had given the Kethvari a chance to walk away. They had refused. Tactical. Lock the convergence lance onto the Dominion of Stars. Kevin's fingers moved across his console. Target locked, sir. All hands. This is the commander. In a few moments, we will fire the convergence lance for the first time in combat. What happens next will change the course of human history. I want you all to know that I am proud to serve with you. Whatever comes, humanity will remember this day. Ambassador Patricia Cole watched from her quarters. Her heart was pounding in her chest. She had spent her career trying to build bridges between species. She had believed that diplomacy could solve any problem. Now she was about to witness a weapon that could end a war before it started, or begin one that might never end. Maria Santos stood beside the convergence lance. The device was beautiful in a terrible way. It was made of materials that had taken decades to synthesize. Its crystalline core glowed with an inner light that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal space. She reached out and touched it gently. Please work, she whispered. Please do what you were made to do. On the bridge, the countdown began. Kevin reported the enemy's status in a calm voice. Dominion of Stars weapons are charged. They are entering firing range. 60 seconds to optimal strike distance. Daniel watched the massive ship approach. He thought about the 42,000 Kethvari aboard that vessel. They were soldiers following orders. Many of them probably had families waiting for them back home. They were not evil. Not all of them. They were simply part of a system that valued strength above all else. But that system had chosen to threaten Earth. It had chosen to call humanity weak. It had chosen to treat human beings as prey to be hunted, and slaves to be owned. And Daniel Harris had not traveled across the stars to let that stand. Commander, Lisa said quietly. Are you certain about this? He turned to look at her. She had been with him for 6 years. She had trusted him through every mission, every crisis, every moment of doubt. Now she was asking him one final question. No, he admitted. I am not certain. I do not know if this is right. I do not know if we have the moral authority to destroy a ship full of living beings. But I do know that if we do not act, then the Kethvari will see our hesitation as weakness. They will attack Earth. They will kill millions of innocent people. They will enslave those who survive. So, we kill them first. We defend ourselves. There is a difference. Lisa nodded slowly. She did not look happy, but she understood. Sometimes there were no good choices. Sometimes you could only pick the option that saved the most lives. 30 seconds, Kevin reported. The Dominion of Stars is charging its main batteries. It looks like they are preparing a full volley. Daniel straightened his shoulders. This was the moment. Everything humanity had worked for. Everything they had dreamed about. When they first looked up at the stars, it all came down to this. All vessels in the area, this is the USS Sparrow, he broadcast on an open channel. I recommend you withdraw to a minimum safe distance of 10,000 kilometers. What happens next will be something you have never seen before. Ride. The alien ships did not move. They thought it was a bluff. They thought the tiny human vessel was trying to buy time or scare them with empty words. They were wrong. 10 seconds, Kevin said. Enemy weapons are locked. They are about to fire. Daniel's voice was steady and calm. Fire the convergence lance. Maria Santos pressed the activation button. Deep within the Sparrow, the crystalline matrices aligned. Energy from the quantum foam of space-time itself focused into a single coherent beam. The lance fired without sound, without light, without any visible sign of its passage. And on the other side of the battlefield, 48 kilometers of Kethvari warship stopped existing. The Dominion of Stars was simply gone. One moment it was there, weapons glowing, shields shimmering, a monument to centuries of conquest. The next moment there was nothing but empty space. 42,000 lives ended in an instant so brief that they never knew it happened. The galaxy fell silent. For 37 seconds, no one spoke, no one moved. The 346 remaining vessels hung motionless in space, their crews frozen in shock and disbelief. The place where the Dominion of Stars had been was now just empty darkness. There was no wreckage, no debris field, no escape pods. The mightiest warship in the Kethvari Empire had simply ceased to exist. Lieutenant Kevin Park stared at his tactical display. His instruments were working perfectly. They showed exactly what he expected to see, which was nothing at all. "Target eliminated," he said in a voice barely above a whisper. "Complete molecular dissolution. There is no trace of the enemy vessel remaining." Commander Daniel Harris stood at the center of his bridge. His face was calm, but inside his chest his heart was pounding like a drum. They had done it. The convergence lance had worked exactly as designed. 70 years of human effort had paid off in a single moment. But the cost, 42,000 lives. He would carry that weight for the rest of his days. "Open a channel to all vessels," he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Monroe complied. Her hands were trembling slightly as she worked her console. She had believed in the mission. She had known what the lance could do, but seeing it happen was something else entirely. "Channel open." "Sir." Daniel faced the view screen. He knew that every alien species in the system was watching. He knew that this moment would be recorded and analyzed and debated for centuries to come. He had one chance to get this right. "This is Commander Daniel Harris of the United Earth Government vessel USS Sparrow. You have just witnessed the first combat deployment of human quantum displacement technology. The vessel known as Dominion of Stars has been removed from existence. This was not an act of aggression. This was self-defense. The Kethvari High Admiral challenged us to combat and threatened to destroy our homeworld. We gave him the opportunity to withdraw. He refused." He paused to let the words sink in. "Humanity did not come to the stars seeking war. We came seeking friendship and knowledge and the wonders of the universe. But we will not be bullied. We will not be conquered. We will not be enslaved. Any species that threatens Earth or her allies will face the same fate as the Dominion of Stars." He took a breath. "We prefer peace, but we are prepared for war." The channel closed. Daniel turned away from the view screen and walked to his command chair. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to move with confidence. His crew was watching. They needed to see strength. "Status report," he said. Lisa checked her instruments. "The Kethvari fleet is in chaos, sir." Their command structure was centered on the Dominion. With Zorkethan gone, they have no clear leadership. Several of their vessels are powering up their jump drives. "Are they preparing to attack?" "No, sir. They are running." Kevin nodded in confirmation. "I am detecting emergency jump calculations across the entire Kethvari formation. They are going to retreat to their home territory." Daniel allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. The Kethvari were bullies. Like all bullies, they were brave when they thought they were strong. But when they faced something they could not beat, they ran away. "What about the other species?" he asked. Lisa scanned through the diplomatic channels. "The Zorvathi are demanding an emergency session of the Assembly. The Mendari have raised their shields and are requesting that all vessels maintain distance from each other. The Vothkai are broadcasting questions about how our weapon works." Ambassador Patricia Cole contacted the bridge from her quarters. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Commander Harris, I am receiving priority communications from multiple delegations. They want to know our intentions. They want to know if we plan to use the lance against anyone else. Tell them the truth, Ambassador. Humanity has no aggressive intentions toward any species. The lance is a defensive weapon. We will only use it to protect ourselves and those who ask for our protection. They may not believe us. Then they can watch and see. Our actions will speak louder than any words. Down in engineering, Maria Santos sat on the floor beside the convergence lance. The device had powered down after the shot, and now it sat silent and still. She had spent her entire adult life building this machine. She had dreamed of this moment for decades. Now that it had happened, she felt hollow inside. "We did it," she whispered to the empty room. "We actually did it." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Kethvari fleet jumped away without a word, leaving behind only the memory of their humiliation. The remaining species reorganized themselves around the tiny human ship that had suddenly become the most important vessel in the system. High Admiral Kethvor, who had been second in command of the Kethvari forces, sent a message before departing. His scales had gone pale, and his 4 eyes were dull with shock. "Human Commander," he said, "you have destroyed our greatest warrior and our mightiest ship. You have made yourself the enemy of the Kethvari Empire. We will not forget this." Daniel met his gaze through the view screen. "I gave your High Admiral a chance to walk away. He chose to fight. Remember that when you decide what happens next. If your empire comes for Earth, we will defend ourselves. But if you choose peace, we will welcome it." Kethvor said nothing. He simply stared at the human for a long moment. Then, the transmission ended, and the remaining Kethvari vessels vanished into hyperspace. The Zorvathi delegate, a being with gray skin and large black eyes, requested a private audience with Ambassador Cole. The meeting took place in a holographic conference room, with both parties appearing as shimmering images. "Your species has changed everything," the Zorvathi said. "For millennia, the Kethvari have dominated this region of space. They conquered without consequence. They killed without fear. Now you have shown that they can be beaten." Patricia chose her words carefully. "We did not seek this confrontation. It was forced upon us. Nevertheless, the result is the same. The balance of power has shifted. Species that were afraid to resist the Kethvari will now see that resistance is possible. There will be uprisings. There will be war. That is not what we wanted. What you wanted is no longer relevant. You have thrown a stone into a pond, and the ripples will spread, whether you wish them to or not." The Zorvathi paused. "The question now is what humanity will do with its new position. You have proven that you are strong. How will you use that strength?" Patricia looked through the holographic window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth. Billions of people going about their lives, unaware of how much had changed in the past few hours. "We will use it to protect the innocent," she said finally. "We will use it to defend those who cannot defend themselves. And we will use it to build a galaxy where strength is not the only thing that matters." The Zorvathi studied her for a long moment. "Pretty words. We shall see if your species can live up to them." The connection ended. Patricia Cole sat alone in the empty conference room and wondered if she had just made a promise that humanity could keep. On the bridge of the Sparrow, Commander Daniel Harris watched the stars wheel past his view screen. The mission was a success. Earth was safe. The galaxy knew that humanity was not to be trifled with. But this was only the beginning. The real work lay ahead, and somewhere in the back of his mind, 42,000 ghosts whispered that the price of victory is never free. 6 months had passed since the day the Sparrow changed everything. Commander Daniel Harris stood on a balcony overlooking the construction yards of New Geneva Station. Below him, hundreds of workers moved between scaffolds and cranes, building the next generation of human starships. Not all of them would carry weapons like the Convergence Lance. But all of them would carry the knowledge that humanity had proven itself among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Monroe found him there, as the artificial sunset painted the station's dome in shades of orange and gold. She had been promoted after their return to Earth. In another month, she would take command of her own vessel. "You look like a man with something heavy on his mind," she said. Daniel smiled slightly. "I always do these days." "The nightmares?" He nodded. It had become common knowledge among the crew that their commander did not sleep well. The faces of 42,000 Kethvari visited him in his dreams, asking why they had to die. "I do not regret what we did," he said slowly. "If I had to do it again, I would make the same choice. But that does not mean it was easy. It does not mean I have forgotten the cost." Lisa stood beside him and looked out at the construction yards. "My grandmother used to say that good people carry their burdens. It is the ones who feel nothing that you should worry about." "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." "She was. She died before we made first contact with the Zorvathi. Sometimes I wonder what she would have thought of all this." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. The station hummed with activity around them. Thousands of people working toward a future that had seemed impossible just a few years ago. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the ripples from the Sparrow's shot continued to spread. The Kethvari Empire had fallen into civil war. Without High Admiral Zor Kethan to hold them together, the various factions had turned on each other. Worlds that had been conquered for generations rose up against their oppressors. The fighting was brutal, but for the first time in centuries the victims had hope. Ambassador Patricia Cole had negotiated treaties with 17 species in the months since the demonstration. Humanity's reputation had transformed overnight. Species that had dismissed them as insignificant now sought their friendship. Species that had planned to conquer them now treated them with careful respect. Not everyone was happy about this. Some alien races resented humanity's sudden rise to prominence. They whispered about the danger of a species that could erase warships from existence. They formed quiet alliances and watched Earth with wary eyes, but they did not attack. Fear was a powerful deterrent. Chief Engineer Maria Santos had been awarded every scientific honor that Earth could offer. She had given speeches and received medals and shaken hands with world leaders. But the recognition felt hollow to her. The Convergence Lance was her life's work, and it had been used to kill. She could not decide if that made her a hero or a monster. In the end, she chose to keep working. She led a team that was developing new applications for quantum displacement technology. Not weapons this time, but tools for construction and medicine and exploration. If the science behind the lance could take lives, then perhaps it could also save them. Lieutenant Kevin Park had transferred to the academy to teach tactical operations. His students hung on every word when he described the moment the Dominion of Stars vanished. They wanted to know what it felt like to be part of history. "It felt terrifying," he told them honestly. "We were a tiny ship facing something 100 times our size. We had one weapon and one shot. If we missed or if the lance failed, then we would all be dead, and Earth would burn." "But you did not miss," one student said. "No, we did not miss. But that does not mean it was not scary. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what needs to be done even when you are afraid." The Sparrow itself had become a museum ship orbiting Earth. Millions of people came to walk its corridors and stand on the bridge where Daniel Harris had given the order to fire. They touched the walls and imagined what it must have been like to be there. A plaque near the entrance read, "This vessel proved that the measure of strength is not size but resolve." The crew of the Sparrow stood against tyranny and changed the galaxy forever. Daniel attended the dedication ceremony, but he did not give a speech. He simply walked through his old ship one last time and remembered the people who had served with him. They had believed in the mission even when it seemed impossible. They had trusted him with their lives. He hoped he had been worthy of that trust. A year after the demonstration, Earth launched its first colony ship to a world in a distant solar system. The planet was small and green with oceans that sparkled under a yellow sun. The colonists named it New Hope. Lisa Monroe commanded the escort fleet that protected the colony ship during its journey. No hostile forces tried to intercept them. No aliens demanded tribute or threatened destruction. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not to be trifled with. As the colonists landed on their new world, Lisa sent a message back to Earth. It traveled faster than light through the quantum relay network and reached Daniel Harris within minutes. "We made it," the message read. "The colonists are safe. The first shelters are going up, and the children are running through fields of alien flowers. You should see their faces, Daniel. They are so happy. They are so free. This is what we fought for. This is why it mattered." Daniel read the message 3 times. Then he walked out onto his balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, unimaginably far away, human beings were building a new home on a new world. They would grow crops and raise families and dream dreams that no one on Earth had ever imagined. And it was all because a tiny ship called the Sparrow had refused to be afraid. The galaxy was still dangerous. There were species that hated humanity and waited for a chance to strike. There were wars being fought on distant worlds. There was suffering and cruelty and darkness that even the brightest light could not dispel. But there was also hope. There was friendship between species that had been enemies for millennia. There was trade and exchange of knowledge, and the slow building of something better than what had come before. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Not as bullies, but as friends to those who sought friendship. They extended one hand in peace to any who would take it, and with the other hand, they held the power to defend everything they loved. Daniel Harris retired from active service 2 years after the demonstration. He moved to a small house by the ocean and spent his days reading books and watching the waves. Sometimes, old friends would visit, and they would talk about the past. Sometimes reporters would come asking for interviews, and he would politely turn them away. But every night before he went to sleep, he would step outside and look up at the sky. He would find the constellation that pointed toward Varanthos Prime, the place where everything had changed, and he would remember the lesson that humanity had taught the galaxy. It is not the size of the ship that matters. It is the courage of those who sail her, and the smallest warrior can carry the mightiest heart. The end.
The conference hall stretched out like a massive dome, filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Kreltak of the Vrin Collective sat in his designated seat, his forearms folded across his chest. The metallic scales that covered his body reflected the soft blue lights from above. Around him, delegates from dozens of species chatted, argued, and made deals. This was the Galactic Trade Summit, held every cycle to discuss commerce, treaties, and peaceful cooperation. Kreltak found these meetings boring. The Vrin were warriors first, traders second. But his people needed allies, so here he sat, listening to the Quillian representative drone on about mineral rights in the outer sectors. His secondary eyes watched the room while his primary eyes pretended to pay attention to the speaker. Then the humans arrived. Ambassador Chen walked to the center platform with confident steps. She was small compared to most species in the room, but humans always carried themselves like they owned whatever space they occupied. Her dark hair was tied back and she wore a simple blue suit. Nothing fancy. That was strange. Usually when someone had big news, they dressed to impress. "Thank you for your time-honored delegates," Chen said, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity wishes to announce a new initiative in interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange." The room quieted down. Humans were still relatively new to galactic politics. Only 200 cycles since first contact. Everyone was curious what these strange mammals would do next. Chen smiled. "As many of you know, the United Colonial Navy has been downsizing after the peace accords. We've been decommissioning older vessels to focus on exploration, rather than military expansion. One such vessel was the UCNS Indomitable, a Titan-class supercarrier that served with distinction for 50 years. Kreltak knew of the Indomitable. Every military power in the galaxy knew about it. That ship had ended the border wars single-handedly. It carried 200 fighter craft, enough missiles to crack a moon, and shield systems that could withstand a sustained bombardment from an entire fleet. The Vrin military had studied it extensively, looking for weaknesses. They had found very few. Standard protocol, Chen continued, would be to strip the ship for parts and recycle the materials. But humans have never been very good at following standard protocol. A few species in the audience made sounds that might have been laughter. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable. Instead, we decided to convert the Indomitable into something the galaxy has never seen before. Chen pressed a button on her tablet, and a massive holographic image appeared above the assembly. It showed the supercarrier, but transformed beyond recognition. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, I present to you the Starbound Palace, the galaxy's premier floating resort and entertainment complex." Silence filled the chamber. Complete absolute silence. Kreltak stared at the hologram. The military vessel he had studied, feared, and respected had been turned into... what exactly? The image showed gardens, restaurants, swimming pools, theaters, and what looked like shopping districts. The hangar bays that once held fighters now displayed waterfalls and tropical environments. The weapons arrays were gone, replaced with observation decks and landing pads for civilian shuttles. "This is madness," whispered the Thraken delegate sitting near Kreltak. The Thraken were warriors like the Vryn. They understood the value of a warship. To see one destroyed, no worse, transformed into something frivolous, it was almost offensive. Chen seemed to enjoy the shocked reactions. The Starbound Palace offers 5-star accommodations for all species. We have gravity adjustments for every type of physiology, atmosphere-controlled environments, cuisine from 60 different worlds, and entertainment options ranging from zero-gravity sports to classical human opera. The grand opening will be held in 2 weeks at Celestia Prime. More silence. Then slowly delegates began to whisper among themselves. The Quillian representative raised a tentacle. "Ambassador Chen, forgive my confusion, but why? A military vessel of that class represents billions in resources and decades of construction. Surely there were more practical uses." Chen's smile grew wider. "The Quillian are practical people. So are humans. We looked at the cost of building a new luxury resort station versus converting existing infrastructure. The Indomitable had the size, the power generation capacity, the life support systems, and the structural integrity we needed. Plus, it sends a message." "What message?" Kreltak found himself asking, his voice carrying across the chamber. Chen turned to face him. "That humanity is committed to peace. We're taking our instruments of war and transforming them into instruments of culture and cooperation. The Starbound Palace will be a neutral ground where any species can visit, trade, and build relationships. No weapons, no military presence. Just good food, comfortable beds, and the chance to understand each other better." The Vryn ambassador processed this information. It made sense from a certain perspective. Humans were always talking about symbolism and gestures, but something felt wrong about it. A warrior did not simply put down their sword and walk away. They kept it close, even in times of peace. "All delegates are invited to the grand opening," Chen said, distributing holographic invitations to every seat in the chamber. "I promise you an experience unlike anything you've encountered before. The Starbound Palace represents the best of human hospitality, creativity, and engineering." The invitation appeared in front of Kreltak. It showed a luxurious suite with a view of stars, a restaurant with elegant lighting and smiling humans in crisp uniforms greeting guests of various species. At the bottom, it read, "Where warriors become guests and strangers become friends." After the session ended, Kreltak stood in the corridor outside, studying the invitation. Other delegates walked past, discussing the announcement. Opinions were mixed. Some thought it was a brilliant idea. Others called it wasteful. The Thraken delegation was clearly offended, treating it as an insult to military tradition. "What do you think?" asked his aide, a younger Vryn named Shalnix. "Will you attend?" Kreltak considered the question. His people needed to understand humanity better. These strange creatures had appeared from nowhere, and within 2 centuries had become a major galactic power. They fought differently, thought differently, and clearly made decisions that defied conventional wisdom. "Yes," he said finally, "I will attend. If nothing else, I want to see what they've done to that ship." The Indomitable was a masterpiece of military engineering. "I'm curious to see if humans can create something equally impressive with peace." But as he walked away, a thought nagged at his mind. Humans were clever, too clever sometimes. They smiled and talked about peace while their eyes calculated every angle. He had studied human history during his diplomatic training. These were beings who had fought each other for thousands of years before reaching the stars. They understood war better than most species ever would. Would humans really disarm such a powerful vessel completely? Or was there something else happening here? Something that the delegates weren't seeing? Kreltak decided he would accept the invitation. He would tour this starbound palace carefully, and he would keep all 4 of his eyes open. Because when humans said they had turned a supercarrier into a resort, he suspected they weren't telling the complete story. They never did. The shuttle descended toward the massive vessel floating in orbit around Celestia Prime. Kreltak pressed against the viewport, and even his usual stoic demeanor cracked slightly. The Indomitable, now called the Starbound Palace, gleamed in the light of the nearby sun. Fresh white and gold paint covered the hull, Elegant lights traced patterns along what used to be armor plating. Massive windows showed interior spaces where weapon batteries once lived. It looks nothing like the combat footage, Shalnix murmured beside him, equally amazed. The shuttle docked at one of the landing bays. As the doors opened, Kreltak expected the cold industrial feel of a military hangar. Instead, warm air carrying the scent of flowers greeted them. The hangar had been transformed into a grand atrium. Real trees grew from planters. Water flowed down artificial rocks into a crystal-clear pool. Soft music played from hidden speakers. A human woman in an elegant uniform approached, her smile bright and welcoming. Ambassador Kreltak, welcome to the Starbound Palace. I'm Sarah, your hospitality coordinator. If you need anything during your stay, just ask. Thank you, Kreltak managed. His translator implant struggled with the concept of a hospitality coordinator, on what his mind still registered as a warship. Sarah led them through corridors that bore no resemblance to their military past. Plush carpets covered metal floors. Artwork from various worlds hung on walls. They passed restaurants where beings from different species dined together. The smell of cooking food made Kreltak's stomach rumble despite himself. Your suite is on deck 7, Sarah said cheerfully. We've adjusted the gravity and atmosphere to Vryn specifications. The minibar is stocked with beverages suitable for your biology, and the entertainment system has programs in your language. The suite was impressive. Large windows showed the curve of Celestia Prime below. The furniture looked comfortable and expensive. A small kitchen area offered various amenities. This was luxury that rivaled anything Kreltak had experienced. The grand opening gala begins in 3 hours, Sarah said. Formal attire is optional. We want everyone to be comfortable. If you'd like a tour before the event, just contact me through the room's communication panel. After she left, Kreltak examined the room carefully. His eyes traced structural lines in the walls. These walls are reinforced, he said quietly to Shalnix. Look at the support beams. That's not standard civilian construction. Maybe they didn't modify everything, Shalnix suggested. The ship's structure would still be military grade. Perhaps, but Kreltak wasn't convinced. They attended the tour before the gala. A cheerful artificial intelligence named Stella guided groups through various sections of the ship. Her voice was warm and bubbly, describing features with obvious pride. This used to be the primary mess hall, Stella explained as they entered a massive restaurant. Now it's Le Cosmos, our 5-star dining establishment. The head chef trained at Earth's finest culinary institutes and worked with specialists from 20 other worlds to create fusion cuisine that respects all dietary requirements. The space was beautiful. Elegant tables, soft lighting, and a view of the stars through floor-to-ceiling windows. But Kreltak noticed the windows were unusually thick. Blast-resistant, perhaps? They continued to the entertainment decks. There was a zero-gravity sports arena, several theaters showing productions from different cultures, a massive swimming complex with water from Earth's oceans, and even a small shopping district selling crafts from across the galaxy. What's behind that door? Asked a Thraken warrior, pointing to a sealed entrance marked, Authorized Personnel Only. Maintenance and engineering, Stella replied smoothly. Not very exciting, I'm afraid. Just power generators and life support equipment. We keep those areas restricted for safety reasons. But Kreltak noticed something. Stella's voice had changed slightly when answering that question. Less bubbly, more precise. The difference was subtle, but it was there. The gala itself was spectacular. The main event took place in what Stella called the Grand Arena, the former primary hangar bay. Thousands of guests from dozens of species filled the space. Human staff moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, offering drinks and appetizers. Ambassador Chen gave a speech welcoming everyone. She talked about unity, cooperation, and the beginning of a new era. Other ambassadors spoke about peace and cultural exchange. It was all very diplomatic and proper. Then came the entertainment. Human performers demonstrated various acts. Acrobats performed impossible feats in zero gravity, creating art with their bodies as they floated through the air. Musicians played instruments from Earth, creating sounds that resonated with something deep in Kreltak's chest. Dancers moved with precision and grace. But what caught Kreltak's attention was the staff. They smiled and served with perfect courtesy, but they moved like soldiers. The way they positioned themselves, the way their eyes constantly scanned the room. the subtle communication between them. These weren't ordinary resort workers. Having a good time, Ambassador? Captain Maria Santos appeared beside him. She wore a civilian suit with a name tag that read, Hospitality Director. Captain Santos, Kreltak said. Military records had identified her as the Indomitable's former commanding officer. Or should I say Director Santos? Either works, she smiled. I hope our facilities meet your expectations. They exceed them, he admitted. The transformation is remarkable. However, I must ask, did you truly remove all military systems? Santos sipped her drink calmly. The Starbound Palace is fully licensed as a civilian entertainment complex. All required inspections were passed. Every system meets galactic safety standards for commercial vessels. That's not what I asked. I know. Her smile didn't waver, but it's the answer I'm giving. Please enjoy the evening. As fireworks exploded outside the massive windows, creating brilliant colors against the black of space, Kreltak made mental notes. The decorative panels on some walls had seams that suggested they could retract. The observation deck had a rotation mechanism far too robust for simple sightseeing. The vintage military aesthetic in certain sections looked suspiciously functional. Later that night, back in his suite, Kreltak compiled his observations. Shalnix watched with concern. You think the humans are lying? The aide asked. I think humans are being very careful with their words, Kreltak replied. They've converted this ship into a resort. That much is true. But conversion doesn't necessarily mean removal. It might simply mean concealment. Why would they do that? Kreltak looked out at the stars. Because humans understand something that many species forget. Peace is a wonderful goal, but it requires strength to maintain. A resort that cannot defend itself is a target. But a resort that looks defenseless while actually being the deadliest ship in the sector, that sends a different message entirely. You're speculating? I am, and I hope I'm wrong. But even as he said it, Kreltak knew he wasn't wrong. He had studied humans too long. They were playing a game here, one that was far more complex than anyone realized. The question was, what would happen when that game revealed its true nature? Kreltak had a feeling he would find out soon. Humans didn't build things without purpose, and they certainly wouldn't waste resources converting a supercarrier unless they had a very good reason. He set his tablet aside and tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to one observation. Every single human staff member wore a uniform with plenty of pockets, and those pockets looked exactly the right size for concealed weapons. Yes, he would definitely keep watching. Something was going to happen. He could feel it in his scales. The third day of the grand opening week started peacefully. Kreltak had just finished an excellent breakfast in one of the smaller restaurants when the alarms began. They weren't loud or frightening. Just a steady chime followed by Stella's voice, still cheerful but with an edge of urgency. Attention guests. We have received a distress call from a nearby vessel. Please remain calm and stay in your current locations while we assess the situation. Around Kreltak, other guests looked concerned but not panicked. The human staff moved quickly through the restaurant, speaking quietly to people, offering reassurance. Their practiced movements seemed too smooth, too rehearsed. Kreltak activated his personal communicator. Shalnix answered immediately. Ambassador, I'm in our suite. What's happening? Unknown. Stay there. I'll investigate. He made his way towards the command center, or what used to be the command center. Now it was called the Operations Coordination Hub, and supposedly managed guest services. The doors were closed, but through the small window, Kreltak could see multiple humans working at stations, their faces serious. A security officer, Quillian, not human, approached him. Ambassador, please return to your suite. This is a restricted area. What's the situation? The Quillian's tentacles writhed with distress. A passenger liner, the Celestial Dawn, has been seized by Korax raiders. They're demanding 5 million credits in ransom. They've already. The officer paused, his skin changing to a darker shade. They've already killed 2 hostages to prove they're serious. Kreltak's scales tightened with anger. The Korax raiders were scum. Pirates who preyed on civilian vessels. How far away? 20 minutes at sublight speed. But protocol says we wait for galactic security forces. They'll arrive in approximately 3 hours. 3 hours? More hostages will die. I know. But we're a civilian vessel. We have no authority to intervene. The Quillian's voice carried frustration and helplessness. Before Kreltak could respond, the doors to operations opened. Captain Santos stepped out, but she looked different. Gone was the friendly hospitality director. This woman wore a tactical uniform, black and efficient. Her hair was tied back severely. Her eyes were cold and calculating. "Ambassador Kreltak," she said crisply, "please proceed to the main arena. All guests are being gathered there for safety reasons. You're going to attack the raiders." It wasn't a question. Santos met his gaze steadily. "I'm going to ensure the safety of all beings in this sector. Please proceed to the arena." Kreltak didn't move. "I'm a military commander. I've led fleets. If you're planning a rescue operation, I want to observe." Santos considered for a moment. "Observation only. You interfere and you'll be removed forcibly. Clear?" Clear. She led him into operations. The change was shocking. The guest services facade had been stripped away. Wall panels had retracted to reveal multiple tactical displays. Human crew members sat at military-grade workstations. Everything gleamed with the efficiency of a warship bridge. At the center stood a holographic display showing the celestial dawn surrounded by 4 Corax raider vessels. Santos studied it with the focused intensity of a predator. "Stella, status report." The AI's voice was completely different now. No bubbly enthusiasm, just precise military efficiency. Raider vessels identified as Corax light cruisers. Shields at 70%, weapons armed. The Celestial Dawn reports. 143 passengers and crew held hostage. Raiders have explosives planted at critical points. Time to GSF arrival? 2 hours 53 minutes. Santos nodded. "Too long. Begin combat protocols. Authorization, Santos 77 Delta." Acknowledged. Indomitable combat systems activating. The entire ship seemed to shift. Kreltak felt it through his feet. A low hum of power building. Around them, more panels retracted. Displays that had shown restaurant menus now showed weapons targeting systems. The decorative lighting shifted to tactical illumination. "Communications, open channel to all guests," Santos ordered. A young human man nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Santos took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried through every speaker on the ship. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, this is Captain Maria Santos. I apologize, but we're going to have a slight change in our scheduled programming. A passenger vessel is under attack nearby and people are dying. Galactic security forces won't arrive in time, so we're going to help." Kreltak imagined the panic this announcement would cause among the guests. Santos continued. "For your safety, please proceed to the main arena on Deck 3. My crew will guide you. I promise you're not in danger. The Starbound Palace, or as she was once known, the Indomitable, is quite capable of handling this situation. Thank you for your patience." She cut the channel and turned to her crew. "Tactical, begin combat systems checkout. Engineering, I want full power to shields and weapons. Flight operations, prep the interceptors." "Wait," Kreltak said, his mind reeling. "Interceptors? You still have combat craft?" Santos glanced at him. "Did you really think we got rid of them? Those entertainment venues on the flight decks have retractable floors. Underneath, 2 full squadrons of fighters, ready to launch in under 5 minutes. The decorative panels, retractable armor and weapon covers. The observation deck mounts a naval railgun, 2 railguns actually." Santos smiled grimly. "You're quite observant, Ambassador." A crew member called out, "Captain, Corax raiders are hailing us. They're warning us not to approach. Ignore them. Helm, intercept course. Maximum sublight." The ship surged forward. Kreltak grabbed a railing for support. This was no lumbering resort vessel. The Indomitable moved like a predator, fast and deadly. "Raider vessels are powering weapons," Tactical reported. "Targeting solution acquired. Hold fire. Launch interceptors. I want those raider ships disabled, not destroyed. There are protocols even in combat. Interceptor squadron launching." Through the viewport, Kreltak watched as sections of the ship's hull opened. Combat craft shot out, their engines burning bright. They were sleek, deadly, and moving with perfect coordination. Stella, establish electronic warfare protocols. Jam their communications. Acknowledged. Deploying countermeasures. The holographic display showed the interceptors closing on the raider vessels. The Korax ships tried to respond, but they were clearly confused. They hadn't expected resistance, and certainly not from a resort ship. Railguns charged and locked. Tactical announced. Target their engines only. Precision shots. I want them dead in space, not dead. Aye, Captain. The Indomitable fired. Even in the vacuum of space, Kreltak imagined he could hear it. 2 lances of superheated metal crossed the distance in an instant. The raider vessel's engines exploded in brilliant flashes. Direct hits. Enemy vessels disabled. Interceptors, maintain perimeter. Don't let them launch escape pods yet. Marines, you're cleared for boarding action. Get those hostages out. Another panel retracted, and Kreltak saw what had been hidden behind it. An entire deployment bay with armed soldiers in power armor. They launched in boarding craft toward the celestial dawn. The entire operation took 18 minutes. The Marines breached the passenger liner, neutralized the raiders, and secured the hostages. Not a single additional casualty. The raider vessels floated helplessly, their crews detained. The celestial dawn was safe. In operations, the crew worked with calm efficiency, coordinating rescue efforts, treating wounded, and arranging transport for the traumatized passengers. Santos finally relaxed slightly. Stella, begin powering down combat systems. Return to hospitality mode. Acknowledged. All guests have been secured in the arena and are receiving refreshments and entertainment while they wait. Several are quite excited by the situation. Santos laughed tiredly. Of course they are. Nothing like a combat operation to liven up a vacation. She turned to Kreltak. Now you know our secret, Ambassador. The Starbound Palace is a fully functional resort. It's also still the Indomitable, ready to defend herself and anyone near her. We never lied. We just didn't volunteer all the details. Kreltak didn't know what to say. His suspicions had been correct, but the reality was even more impressive than he'd imagined. This will cause a political incident. Probably. But those hostages are alive. I can live with some angry politicians if that's the price. The Galactic Council will demand explanations. Santos met his eyes. And we'll give them, along with the footage of 200 people who won't die today because we were here. Let the Council debate all they want. Meanwhile, we'll be serving dinner in an hour. The beef Wellington is excellent. She walked away, barking orders to her crew. Around them, the Indomitable began transforming back into the Starbound Palace. Panels closed. Lights shifted.